and welcome to City Desk, a behind-the-scenes look at Santa Barbara's top local news stories. I'm your host, Jerry Roberts, joined by an all-star lineup of local journalists for an inside look at these headlines. The mayor's State of the City address, 4 times longer than the Declaration of Independence, calls Santa Barbara vibrant and strong. A big reveal on the Central Coast's most influential women in business, and an update on the drought as Nick Welsh confesses his man crush on the rainbow trout. Plus all the latest on district elections and other local news. Joining me tonight, Nick Welsh of the Santa Barbara Independent, Marissa Wensky from the Pacific Coast Business Times, and Laura Cooper, staff reporter from Newshawk. Thank you all for being here. Sure. Laura, Mayor Helene Schneider's annual State of the City address had a different format this year. Why?
Yeah, it was different this year. The biggest thing was that it was open to the public. That was a huge change. The State of the City is kind of just a chance for, it's the Chamber's big event every year, and it just is a chance for all the business who's who type people to get in the same room with the mayor and the city administrator. And that sort of changed in December when the mayor sort of announced that the city would be cutting the chamber out of that process, which was a surprise to the chamber. I mean, they had already secured $10,000 in sponsorships and secured a venue at Fess Parker, and so that was kind of a surprise for everybody involved.
Why did she cut him out?
We didn't really get a lot of information from her. She said her sort of upfront answer was she was concerned about public access to the event. The event is $60 a pop for a ticket for breakfast at the Fess Parker to listen to the presentation, but she said she was concerned about public access and letting people in. So.
Did you buy that?
Half and half. I mean, 'cause I didn't get a much more of an explanation, but I've heard from people around City Hall that for years she actually has been articulating that concern that, why should the general public not be able to attend, and they were trying to create some format where you could get people into cheap seats. But it was kind of coincidental that shortly before she made that decision, Ken Opplinger, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, had written a note critical of her being chairman of the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments on the Highway 101.
SB-CAG.
SB-CAG!
Stick a drink.
SB-CAG! So it was all roads lead to the 101 yet again, and the freeway widening. And so the timing was, you're going to throw a slap-down letter on me. Maybe I'm going to take a harder look at the cheap seat option and make sure that happens. I mean, you probably heard, there was real consternation amongst her council colleagues, and they were trying to figure out how, to walk it back. So
Right.
So hardball Helene was what was going on here. Is that what
the problem was that there were the votes on the council to reverse her, because it's a council decision, but none of the council members wanted to do that, and so I think she would have gotten there anyway, but I think that probably helped.
All right,
Yeah.
Now Laura, I read the speech. Probably yourself and me were the only ones. And I counted 5,413 words. Okay,
There you go.
there it is.
Single
Single space. There it is.
It's like Jack
Got
and
the mayor's
Beanstalk.
State of the City, and should be handing out
Exactly.
leather-bound copies later. Of course, that the Declaration of Independence is only 1,337. Why so long? Is she running for something?
Yeah, I mean, that's the speculation, right? I believe Helene terms out of council in 2018. So what happens between now and then is anybody's guess. I mean, next year there's a big seat coming open, everybody has their eye on Lois Capps' seat. If she chooses not to run, it's unclear, if that happens. But, yeah, that's sort of the holy grail of Central Coast politics. So
All right.
We'll see.
Did you go to the state?
I
of the city?
didn't make it. I'm so sorry.
Well, it was what time you had to get up at dawn? Didn't you
yeah,
have
pretty
to go see
much
it?
with the Roosters. Yeah, I mean,
What
I think
time
it
was
started
that?
at 7:30.
It
for
starts at
breakfast.
7:30.
Yeah.
It's $60 to get in, and that's accessible.
Well,
So
if you really wanted to go, though, you,
Really want to
You
go.
can get in for free.
you
Yeah.
could get in. I'm sure Henry would have. Henry
Yeah.
Dubroff. So what were the highlights? What was? She says that we're strong and vibrant. Speak for yourself, Helene. But you know that. What were the highlights of the city?
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. She sort of. She's speaking to her audience, right? These are all business community, business owners, many of them downtown business owners, perhaps some on State Street. So they're intimately aware of the challenges facing the city and possibly the shortcomings as well. But yeah, she talked about some important stuff. She touched on homelessness and
What'd she say? What's she gonna do? She gonna do anything different?
well, I mean, it's still an issue, right? I mean, they just did their point in time count where they look and see how many homeless people are actually in Santa Barbara County, and 893 people are still homeless in Santa
And they're all on
Barbara.
State Street, right?
I
don't
mean,
know.
they're in Santa Barbara, and Santa Barbara is the highest concentration of homelessness in the county. So there's obviously still work to be done
Did
there.
she talk about how that's a problem or an issue for the tourist industry?
Yeah, I mean, the waterfront was brought up, State Street. They're trying to throw out some new community service officers, sort of non-sworn type officers to kind of hand out citations for nuisance crimes and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it was mentioned.
How was the speech received?
It's sort of hard to tell at 7:30 in the morning. It's a little more muted. People are still eating their breakfast, and but it seemed like it was an okay reception.
Yeah. What about the drought? What'd you say? Have to say about
The drought was in there as well. I mean, that's something that's on everybody's mind. Desal, water rates going up. That's that's
I mean, I
a
think-
highlight too.
One of the subliminal, or not so subliminal messages, and maybe one of the reasons why it was so long, other than, down the road, is that this November, there's a really good chance that there's going to be a half-cent sales tax on the city's ballot. It's for infrastructure. The city estimates it's got like $400 million worth of unmet capital improvement needs. You're not going to get it the normal way. Redevelopment agency's dead, so they need a new funding source. And the mayor has traditionally used the State of the State speech as sort of a stumping board to make the case, however subliminally, you like what we're doing for you, you like the extra cops we put on the street, we need money, we need the business community to be with us on this sales tax.
Were you up at 7:30? Did you?
I was
You were
taking my
coming-
dog to the vet.
Oh, okay. So you had a written excuse.
I had a written excuse.
Thanks, Laura. Marissa, your paper's out with a big special section
It is. So-
Friday identifying the top 50 women in business. Tell us about some of them and their
Um,
companies.
So basically, the section spreads just as all of our publication does across the Tri-Counties, which includes Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties. And on the cover you see there is Pam Lopker. She's the chairman of QAD, which is currently worth $79 million. She was
What
once
do they
named
do? What is their-
manufacturing software, which might not, might not automatically know what that is, but
software?
well, for the manufacturing industry, and basically she was once named the richest self-made woman in America by Forbes. She's really a high-profile lady in Santa Barbara, as are many of the women in the section, and it's basically just a showing of top women in top executive positions, and kind of how there is a change in that, and how there are an increasingly higher number of women in those top roles, and actually, I was just reading something that between 2012 and 2014, there was about a 1% increase in the number of women in top executive positions in the top 400 companies in California. So
You think it's greater here
small
than-
increments, but I actually do think it is. There are a lot of examples specifically in Santa Barbara of women in top positions, particularly tech firms.
Sorry.
Another person actually that's one of the editor's picks is Cynthia Stevens. She's the CFO of Invoca, another tech firm. And I think just as the South Coast is increasingly kind of having that rise of tech firms and a lot of those, companies coming out of UCSB through the tech management program and all of that that's coming out, there is a good number of ladies with it. And yeah.
And how are the top 50 women selected?
They're selected through a process between our special reports editor and Henry Dubroff, our editor. And basically what happens is there's nominations that are submitted and we publicize it through the paper, and those nominations are sifted through, and basically the women are chosen based on not just their career, but also if now is their time, if their company has seen a big rise in sales recently or stuff like that, recent achievements, really, the timeliness of it.
And there's an event that's surrounding that. Tell us about
Yes, the Top Women event. It's actually going to be, I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't.
that. That's okay.
Let's see.
We'll figure it out.
It's in there.
Yeah, and if you get the paper, it'll be in there. What about kind of workplace issues? Are there concerns locally about sexual harassment, things that we read about elsewhere in Silicon Valley?
I think women in the workplace, it's always hard. The reason I think it's something where you don't have straight data always about, this many women don't like their workplace or feel discriminated against or any of those things, is a lot of the time, to be quite frank, I think women in especially high profile positions and, in the workplace in general are not exactly open to expressing their grievances about their workplace. A lot of times the easiest, most efficient thing to do is just carry on. And so I think for that reason, it's kind of hard to collect data on the full number of sexual harassment or discrimination or other cases of, basically women not being able to succeed in the workplace. But in general, STEM, basically the math and science field, engineering, that's a really difficult industry for women to penetrate right now. And actually a trial that's going on right now in the Bay Area is the Ellen Pao trial. She is currently an executive at Reddit, and she basically filed a case against her former employer that was Kleiner Perkins, huge venture capital firm. And she's got all these complaints about, whether it's inappropriate comments that people made to her, or maybe her male counterparts getting promotions at more easily than her and maybe not doing as much work as her. And she's got a whole list of grievances. And at first, from a lot of the stuff I was reading earlier on in the trial, it kind of seemed like the case was going against her. And now it's seeming that she might actually stand a chance. So
It's kind of, it turns into a Rashomon sort of situation every time where it's from her perspective.
But it is interesting, when you read the coverage, it's always up in the first, second, third paragraph what a difficult person she is. And I don't think if it was a male who was suing because he didn't get promoted or because of workplace harassment, you wouldn't hear, but he's a real jerk and nobody wants to work with him.
Thank you, Nick. That is, spot on.
Agreed.
And your point is what?
Sorry.
Do you two, because we were talking just before the show that when I started working back before the earth cooled, there was one woman at the paper where I was one woman reporter, and that was all. Do you two find still that there's a difference in interviewing men and interviewing women and how people react to you, or no, it's all gone?
Depends who you're interviewing.
Really?
Yeah, I think it depends. There is a lot of, I think just certain industries are prone to the whole boys club mindset.
Which ones?
And
which industry? You don't have to name
don't
names.
Put me on the
just
spot. I just think certain, like I was talking about sometimes, in the tech field or, in things like manufacturing, maybe things that are stereotypically male industries. My dad he casts bronze for a living, so that's like the manliest field possible. And and I can't imagine a woman being in that workplace, and so I guess there's less of a familiarity level. It's spotty. I don't think I experienced that much, but sometimes.
You?
Yeah, I
Heather?
haven't really noticed it. I think it's a great time to be a female journalist out there working. Just speaking from Newshawk's perspective, 7 out of 10 of our staff are female. So I think people are really used to seeing us at city council meetings and Board of Soups and in court. And so, yeah, I haven't had any pushback. But.
Your editor, Marianne Partridge,
Marianne
came up at
Partridge.
a time when it was unusual to have women in journalism. It was
Oh,
totally
no, when
dead.
she came up, it was like, oh, don't worry your pretty little head. And,
Wow.
you know, it
Does
was,
she say that a lot now?
yeah, she says that all the time.
She says that to you?
She says that to me. No, she definitely pays her dues where that's concerned. And it's funny because I work with her all the time, so I sort of take it for granted. Oh, yeah, she's here and whatever. But you hear the horror stories and just sort of the unconscious good old boy sexism. And actually some really hostile, nasty, in-your-face blowtorch sexism that if it was done today, you know, they'd be out the door.
No, they'd be in court.
Yeah,
with-
so I do feel fortunate. I mean, we've come a long way, but
Yeah. One more question I want to ask you about the section and the women in business. To what extent do you find that the companies that are being headed by women are playing a big role in philanthropy or in contributing to the civic life of Santa Barbara?
yeah, it's really funny you mentioned that because that seems to be a really big trend with women-owned businesses that they kind of do, at least in the ones I've seen and the people I've interviewed in those positions, they really seem to put themselves out there in terms of philanthropy and community service. And I don't know how relative to male-owned businesses if they do it more or less statistically, but I've seen that definitely. Actually, there is a business in Ventura. It's a pet hospital, and it's 5 female veterinarians that own the hospital together, and that was how they basically made their hospital succeed in like 2 years, was just promoting themselves through community service and just getting involved.
Yeah, you can take your dog there.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, look at lynda.com. I mean, they're everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and she's,
She's actually going to be in our Hall of Fame issue.
oh, really?
Yeah.
So she's got it beyond the 50 women in business.
She's, I don't know if one's better than the other, but she's doing it. Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, thank you for that. Nick, we're talking about the drought, which is, you know, the most far-reaching story in California right now, and your paper had a number of drought stories, actually, this week. But I was particularly interested in your must-read Angry Poodle column recently, where you focused on the existential problems of the rainbow
You know,
trout.
it's a steelhead trout.
Oh, the steelhead trout, I'm sorry. I missed that. I was a steelhead.
Steelhead. I mean, come on. You know, it's a
Big difference, big
It's a big
difference.
difference. You want to know what the difference is?
Which tastes better?
Genetically, they're the same. A steelhead trout is a rainbow trout that goes out to the ocean
Okay.
and then comes back. And when it comes back, it's like your father there with the bronze casting. It's got this big lower jaw that's out, and it's an amazing fish. I mean,
What does it have to do with the drought? Just
Okay.
not to
All right. Yeah. Let's.
reel you in.
Manly
Okay,
fish.
all right. What it has to do with the drought is this, is that as water is shrinking and our supplies are shrinking, we're looking for creatures and people to kick out of the rowboat. And the steelhead trout currently, it gets water release out of Lake Kachuma to keep some tiny remnant population from going extinct. The steelhead trout is a endangered species. Once upon a time in Southern California, there were about 32,000 to 46,000 of them. Now, there's maybe 500. And the San Ynez River, maybe there's 16. So it's a big deal. And so the more water you set aside for the trout, the less there are for people. And so there is a lot of hostility, anger, bitterness, resentment expressed at public meetings by elected officials that they have to give up any water for the trout. So I kind of have always had a soft spot in my heart for the
Well,
trout.
I know you have, and that's why. That's why.
Does it sing? What is it?
No. It sings forever. That's the problem. He wanted to come tonight, and thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you personally for
thank
your.
you.
Somebody's got to stand
for
up.
your-
Somebody's got-
Wow.
I mean, I will admit, one of the reasons I like the trout they don't talk. They don't call me up. They leave me alone. So there's that. But they really are an amazing creature. And, you know, I understand that water is, I mean, the drought is real. It's not just an illusion made up by bureaucrats. And before we throw the trout overboard, I think you have to say, okay, have we stopped watering the lawns? Have we all tightened our belts a little bit? You know, they were here for about 85 million years, and they need to stay a little bit longer. And if we're going to toss them overboard, we have to do everything we can to clean up our own act first.
All right, while we're talking
That's my
about this,
sermon.
that concludes my prepared remarks. While we're talking about the drought, we're going to show you some remarkable pictures of Half Dome in Yosemite National Park, and these are courtesy of the Yosemite Conservancy, and they show the advance of the drought over the last 5 years. These were all taken on the same day, March 19th, starting in 2011, going up till 2015, just about a week or so ago. And there's a lot of talk, and I think rightly so, that the seriousness of the drought hasn't really sunk in to people, and
It hasn't.
they really. And you were covering the Montecito hearing the other day. What happened there with the water?
They
rates?
raised the water prices because, well, as you know, it kind of came down to, I mean, they basically have to, because that's basically how the Montecito Water District has been sustaining itself, is just buying mass amounts of water. It doesn't really have a long-range solution right now, and that's basically what a lot of residents are really unhappy with. So they just keep raising the water prices, and that's basically their solution right now. And I think a desal plant, they said it could be done by 2017, but they're kind of putting that on the back burner in a sense. So what did you think about that?
Well, I mean, what struck me, initially I thought
That was a big turnout, wasn't it?
200 people.
200 people,
200 people show up because the rates are going to go up $1.87 for every 748 gallons you use. And you would think of Montecito, not such a big deal. 200 people showed up. There's a lot of frustration. What the hell are you guys doing? You know, last year the Water District says if we don't cut back immediately, we're going to be bone dry by July. People cut back by almost 50%. Now, admittedly, Montecito is about 1/10 the size of Santa Barbara in terms of population.
Oh,
It
yeah,
uses
it's
about
tiny.
1/2 as much water as the city of Santa Barbara.
So it's 1/10 as large and uses half the water.
Right. So you got a whole lot of water that's being spent on landscapes, lawns, and vegetation. And so a year ago, they said, batten down the hatches. This year, they're saying, oh my God, we're running out of money. We just bought 2,500 acre feet. We need money to pay for it, but we need customers to buy it. And so they are pushing, in a time of drought, for people to use 26% more water. So it does seem crazy when you have those pictures that you just showed, when we will get zero water from the State Water Project next year. We'll get zero water from Lake Kachuma next year. And they are going to increase sales to the customers at a time when they don't have the desal plant is a long way off.
How long off is the desal plant? Did the mayor talk about that?
Yeah, she mentioned it. I mean, that's always on the horizon. There's more stuff that needs to happen with permitting and, but it's definitely a huge part of the city's water strategy.
See, Montecito is talking about doing their own.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's the city's desal plant. Montecito would love to, put a straw in it, but thus far, there's no deal.
Right.
And so they're talking about building their own, which is totally insane.
But and you said they're expecting to do that by 2017.
That's kind of the rough number they've thrown out there, I think
Right.
mostly just to appease people.
right.
Hoping it
We're on it.
We're
rains.
being
Yeah.
totally honest.
We're on it. We're on
But
it.
the
Hoping
whole
it'll-
thing with the Montecito water, it's like, I have to wonder, are they really buckling down? In her speech, Helene Schneider, she says, gold truly is the new green about people's lawns. I'm like, I don't know if that's true.
Not my
And
neighborhood.
in those places where it's non-essential water use,
Right.
yeah, I mean, especially, just, I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about that, and I understand they don't want their water being hiked up, but at the same time, it's like, the drought is just at a devastating level. I mean, Lake Kachuma is at 28%. it's time
Yeah,
to
we're just, yeah.
buckle down.
It's all the fault of the almond growers. Anyway, so you know.
Yeah, but in Santa Barbara, we had we had a 7-year cycle, so we planned in terms of 7-year droughts, and we could go 7 years and we'd be out of water. But now this drought is so vast; it's a 4-year cycle, so 4 years and we're going to be out of water. So
Yeah.
I think it's hard for the brain to sort of accommodate that.
Yeah. Well, we just have always had the water we wanted. Real quickly, just a couple of things before we have to leave. What's the latest on district elections?
Almost there. There was a big meeting on Tuesday night where at the city council, maybe 20 to 25 people showed up to talk about the new boundaries. On Monday, the city council is going to figure out which boundary map they're going to pick. And then it's going to go to a judge, and he's going to say, abracadabra, you're done. And the city of Santa Barbara is going to change, 45 years of tradition and go to district elections. We'll have our first district election this November.
You had a big meeting you covered at Casa Dorinda the other night.
Yes.
What's that about?
Yeah, that was just a meeting hosted by the Montecito Association, their land use committee. Casa Dorinda is the prestigious retirement home off of Hot Springs Road. They have plans to expand their facility by over 100,000 square feet. And some of the neighbors took issue with parts of the plan. One of the things they didn't like, they're going to have to pull up 27 oak trees to sort of make room for the development, and trash would be moved a little closer to the boundary lines, closer to their homes, and so that was sort of the crux
So they
of
told
the meeting.
they told the neighbors to take a hike, basically.
They said we're not going to ask for an EIR, which is the environmental document that is tons of money and more time. So that was a surprise.
All right.
And if you hope to ever stay here, you'll leave us alone.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all for coming and talking tonight. Marissa Winsky, Nick Welsh, Laura Cooper. And thank you all for watching. If you have a comment or a suggestion or a story you want us to talk about, let us know, sbcitydesk@gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook. And as the late Scoop Nisker once said, if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time on City Desk.